Start.
Just read to Meridian and
Fire
Be Meridian. If there's still active shooting, we'll take the Bearcat, head that way.
39.
Upper Sioux, it's going to be Locust Grove and U-Stick, and they just put out a shot flyer, just so you know, on the route.
This is the 1032 podcast, where we interview experts in firearms and training with law enforcement, military, and competitive shooting backgrounds. This is the 1032 podcast, and this is Raul Garcia. And I got a good friend of mine here, Nick. How's it going, Nick?
Good. How you doing?
Good. We're going to talk about Nick's background. He has a pretty interesting background. Nick was in the Marine Corps, did some private contract work overseas, and we found out we actually worked on the same SRT team or SWAT team for the Department of Energy, just at different times. Is that right, Nick?
That is correct.
All right. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up at?
So I grew up in Haley, so the Sun Valley area of Idaho. I grew up in Haley, born and raised there. Skied as a kid because that's kind of what you do if you grow up in the Sun Valley area, being right down the road from, one of the top ski resorts in North America. It's kind of just how you're raised doing that type of stuff. So grew up skiing, grew up shooting a little bit, your basic dad taking you out, with the shotgun or the 22 or something like that. And
just what you do when you grow up in the West, in the western
right.
part of the United States, right?
Yeah. It's just kind of what you do. It's not like my dad was like this big gun guy or, had a LE background or mill or anything like that or competition, but he had guns,
That's family time in Idaho.
Yeah.
Let's take the kids out shooting.
Yeah, for sure. So that's just, kind of doing that. And then just, growing up in Haley, it's a lot of outdoor stuff because it's, right at your beck and call. So, just a lot of outdoor type stuff doing that. And then, went to Wood River High School, graduated in 2001 and joined the Marine Corps out of high school. And then, so did that, was in the Marine Corps for several years. And then got out and got into the contracting world. So like private security contractor, either a PSC or PMCs, whatever you want to call it. Some people call them PMCs. Same difference, right? So my first contract was working with the State Department doing diplomatic security for them in high threat environments, right? Mainly Baghdad, Iraq, when I was working with them. And then did that for a few years, and you kind of get your foot in the door doing that, doing contract work, and you network and get to know certain people, the right people sometimes, and got onto another contract with another agency. I'm not going to name the agency just for operational security stuff like that, but got on with another agency and worked with them for several years. And then got kind of burnt out going overseas all the time because contracting, you're doing several trips a year. In the military, you'll do a deployment, then you might be home for 6 months or something like that, and then maybe do another one. Or it's you're home a little bit longer.
How many years total did you do the contract
stuff? 2014 to early 2019.
Okay, you did it for a few years.
So then, about 5 years.
I don't mean to cut you off, but then after you did that, then that's when you went to work for DOE, working at a nuclear facility,
yes.
Right? SRT.
Yep. So I kind of got burnt out doing the contracting stuff. Just gone
that's
all the time.
That's easy to do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's you did the stuff for a little while.
Just that
Pakistan.
Little bit. I'm just like, man, you're gone away from home. You're in a different country, and you just don't have the same type of living that you do. When
you don't.
Overseas.
You don't. And when you are home, you're kind of planning for that next trip.
You're checked out.
You're completely checked out, and when you're married, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, it wasn't a good thing for me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. And then so got burnt out doing that, and then I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? And I've always kind of known about DOE.
For those of you who don't know what it means when we say DOE, we're talking about the Department of Energy, who oversees like the nuclear sites, nuclear reactors, nuclear protection.
Yep. Right. So, I was like, well, I could try to get on with them, because that'd be a pretty sweet gig. I kind of always knew about their SRT teams and stuff like that, just from being in that type of industry, I guess. So, applied with them, and it's a pretty long process getting on with them.
Yeah. It's long because you got to have that security clearance.
Yeah, you have
right?
to have a top secret security clearance and all that stuff, and just it's just a long process, interview processes.
Yeah,
and
they used
stuff
to
like
freak
that.
out my neighbors when I was trying to get my clearance.
Right.
Go knock on the
Right.
door, and these people would my neighbors would call me, "There's these people over here asking about your background and stuff." I was like, yeah, I'm applying for this job.
Yeah. I mean, they dig pretty deep into you. I mean, obviously, I had security clearances before that with the other government jobs, but they still,
Yeah, it's-
you know,
they do it all
it's a
over
whole
again.
it's a whole nother deal. It's another agency. They got to do the whole process again.
They don't care if you had a Q clearance
They
before
don't
with the
care.
prior job. They're like, hey, we're going to start it all over again.
Yep, correct. So got the job with DOE. Was on their special response team. And then some things happened a few years down the road after I was on the I'd been on SRT for a few years, and a few things happened with the political climate, I guess I could say, and I was sent down the road.
I think that happened to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I was fortunate that the agency I was working for at the time, they're like, hey, if you want to take the jab, I guess, or not, they left it up to you as an individual. So
Yeah, where with us it was forced.
Yeah.
Because we were fed, so we were just like the military, right?
Yeah.
We were forced to get it or don't have a job anymore.
Yeah.
So
That's too bad. I hate hearing that kind of stuff. 'Cause
Yeah.
they get rid of a lot of good people.
Yeah, and there were several of us on SRT that did not get it, and SRT is not a very big
No,
unit.
It's a pretty small unit, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty big hit.
Yeah. Thankfully, I was gone by then, and
Right.
years later, I was doing something else. But
Yeah.
yeah, too bad we didn't get to work together at the time because we've just gotten to know each other over the last year, right? We met
Yeah.
kind of through. I think Danny's the one who told me about. He's like, hey, do you know Nick? I was like, no, I don't know Nick. He's like, yeah, he used to work on. He worked at SRT, same place you did.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And he's like, he was at the last match. I was like, dude, I don't know who he is.
Right.
And anyway, so got introduced and kind of hit it off when you find out you have some things in common, right?
Right. Yeah,
Shooting
for sure.
competitively and
Yep.
all the tactical stuff in the background
Yeah.
makes it nice to visit with other people that have the same interests. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the DOE thing. You don't meet very many guys that have done that job, especially on the SRT side.
Yeah.
So when you do meet a guy that has, I mean, that,
Yeah.
when you do meet a guy that has that background, that same background that you do, you're like, oh, okay, because it's really not that common to
Yeah.
run into people that have done that.
Yeah, it's kind of a lot of people don't know about that program.
They don't, which is a good thing. I think a lot of just your average citizen, average people have no idea what DOE even is or what they do.
Most people, when they hear DOE, it's like depending on experience, how much you get paid.
Or Department of Education or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Or if they do know Department of Energy, they have no idea. And we won't get into the ins
Yeah.
and outs of it, obviously, because
Yeah.
security reasons.
Yeah.
But they have no clue what the DOE is or does or what they have their hands in and
Yeah,
stuff
I've
like
even
that.
had former law enforcement guys or law enforcement guys go, "You were on a SWAT team, where?
Right.
And why do you guys need a SWAT team out there?" And then you kind of give them a little bit more about what materials are there, and they're like, oh, "Okay, that makes sense."
Right.
You know?
Right. And a very, it's a Fed SWAT team. It's
Yeah.
a federal SWAT team is what it is. And it's a very, very capable, very highly trained unit with a huge budget
Yeah.
that people have no clue about. And it's, if you are needed as an SRT guy on a site, it's
day.
probably not a very good day.
It's going to be really, really bad.
But there's a reason for us being out there, and the reason that we are trained the way we are trained, and stuff like that. So
yeah, they have some good training. That's for sure.
yeah, for sure, and basically an endless budget.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, it's pretty. I mean,
Yeah, especially for the size of the unit.
exactly. I mean, we can't get into specifics, but yes, I mean, there's no issue with money.
Yeah, that's for sure. So how often do you shoot matches? Are you shooting quite often? You're shooting mostly USPSA pistol matches, right?
Yeah, so I primarily shoot USPSA. I have shot IDPA a handful of times, enough to know that it's not that much fun for me, and USPSA is a lot more fun.
Yeah. And you've made master class already.
Yeah, I'm a
USPSA.
master class shooter in carry optics division.
Optics.
That's my primary division. I started out shooting production, kind of like
We all-
everybody
a lot of
does,
did,
right?
yeah, back in the
I mean,
day.
back in the day when prod was still a popular
What
division.
kind of gun are you running?
I run a CZ Shadow 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, with a Trigicon SRO on it. Yep. So carry optics is my primary division. That's kind of all I shoot, really. Other than, like I said before, I started with production, made A class in production, but haven't shot production in years.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably since 2018 or.
And so, did you get started? Did you were you shooting competitively because you feel like it's kind of an extension of the type of work that you've done over the years, or why do you shoot competitively? Because I don't think it's as much anymore, but in the past, a lot of your tactical guys were kind of against the competitive shooting, and
Right.
But I don't think that's really the case much anymore.
No, it's starting to. The competitive world is starting to kind of bleed over into the, for lack of a better word, the tactical world, right?
Yeah.
Or the operational world or duty world or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Which is an awesome thing, because there's, in previous years, it's just been like such a divide with competitive shooters and tactical shooters, right? I mean, it's like the get you killed on the streets type attitude, and you're just a gamer type attitude, and blah blah blah. We're the big tough tactical guys. We know everything. Well, you start shooting competitively, and if you have kind of both sides, if you have a background with kind of both sides of it, like yourself and me,
Yeah.
and other guys that we know, right? We have both sides of it.
Yeah.
We have the tactical side of it through various jobs that we've had, and then we shoot competitively at, I would say pretty high levels, right?
Sure.
So we have both sides of it, and I think competitive shooting helped me tremendously on the tactical side of it.
Well, I think it really ups your confidence level.
100%. 100%. And like let's just say in a CQB situation, right? Because on SRT you do a ton of CQB.
Yeah.
Right? That's basically all you do, really.
And you're talking about like a room clearing scenario,
Yes.
or something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
like-
Hostage rescue scenario.
Yeah, exactly. Just shooting competitively, I just, compared to guys on my team that didn't shoot competitively, the way I process things going into a room is, I'm just processing. I just found myself being able to process things way faster going into that room or going into a hall or whatever the case is, right? And just the way you move through a house, the way you move your feet, processing, engagements on target, distinguishing targets, stuff like that. It was just way quicker than most dudes were able to do it. And I think that comes from the competitive world, because what are you doing in a competition? You are processing things at a very fast rate.
Yeah, because whoever does it the fastest wins, right? Whoever scores
Correct.
the most points the fastest.
Absolutely. And you're having to process all these things when you're on the clock,
Yeah.
and you're having to process things very quickly and be accurate while you are doing this.
I remember Benny Cooley one day telling me, years ago, going, "Hey, shooting's all about vision." He goes, "And
100%.
processing." He goes, "You got to learn how to see fast and process fast."
Absolutely. And I think competition breeds that type of shooter.
Yeah, because if I'm trying to beat you, I got to learn a process and shoot faster than you.
Absolutely.
And then it just keeps going back and forth until you keep getting to a higher and higher level because you're always trying to beat the next guy. And now, man, it's like, man, I started shooting competitively in the early 2000s, and you know, the overall shooters back then to today, shooters are like they get better so much faster.
Oh, it's insane.
You see some of these 16-year-old kids that come out and they'll shoot like one season, and they come back the next season by middle or the end of the next season, they're already M class or GM.
Yeah, and that is not an exaggeration.
Yeah, back in the day, it would take everybody
it
would
would
take like
take
10
years
to even be a M class, unless you were just super athletic, right?
Right. Yeah, unless you were kind of just like I mean, I don't know if there's even a natural, but some guys do pick it up, a lot quicker. Like I think Ben Stoger, guys like that. He made GM in I don't know, some ridiculous amount of time, but that's also Ben Stoger.
Yeah.
Right. He's a multiple time national champion and a multiple time world champion. I mean, he's
Yeah.
he's an anomaly for sure.
I think X-Ray Alpha, I think, made M or GM in like less than a year.
Yeah. I mean, it does happen, and like you were saying, like back in the day, it would take years and years to make like M or GM, and now it's, I mean, kids are doing it so fast, and I think it's just the resources that people have these days compared to even 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview. I think it was Max Legrandis. Is that how you say his name?
Legrandis, yeah.
Legrandis. Mm-hmm. I think he said he felt like all the video gaming he used to do when he was younger,
Right.
Attributed to that.
Yeah.
And so many kids play video games, and their eye-hand coordination is getting so good, and I think that's a big part of it.
I think that has something to do with it, because I mean, I don't play video games, but I've obviously seen people play these games.
I should.
Yeah, no shit, right? That probably would have helped me a little. Probably would have been made master a little quicker than I did. But anyways, like you, from what I've seen on the screen, is like you have an optic on the screen, like basically a red dot, right? So you're you're learning how to like process. I mean, yes, it's different, but like you're in a way you're learning how to process things.
Some of those things, my
on
kid
the
will
screen.
show me some of those videos, and they're so realistic. Like,
Yeah.
Even like guys are like room clearing, slicing the pie. I'm just like, man, this is like a simulator.
Right. Yeah. It's insane. I wish I would have had some of those. So I started shooting competitively in 2000. Well, I shot my first competition in 2014. But then I started contracting and stuff like that. I was gone and never didn't pick it up again until like 2016. And that's when I really started shooting USPSA and have stuck with it since then. Right. But yeah, I didn't have, I don't know. I didn't have the resources or whatever that it seems like kids do these days.
Yeah.
But
So how many rounds a year did you shoot to get up to that M level?
well, when ammo was cheaper,
Were you shooting a lot of dry fire? And there's some guys that shoot 40, 50, 60,000 rounds
Oh, yeah.
a year, and then you got other guys who
Shoot
will shoot
5,000.
10,000. Yeah, 5
Yeah.
or 10,000. I think trying to think of the shooter's name. Anyway, I know there's one shooter, and he's like a farmer from back east.
yeah.
What was his name?
Jay
Jay
Beal.
Beal, yeah.
Jay Beal. Yeah.
He made master shooting like 5,000 rounds a year, and
Yep.
he just dry fires like crazy.
Yep.
His dry fire setups are freaking amazing.
It's insane. Like in
Yeah.
his basement, he has
Yeah.
like little mini stages down there.
Yeah.
He has like swingers down there and like all sorts of crazy stuff. And he's he's come close to winning a national championship in carry optics. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a top 10 dude in carry optics.
Yeah.
And that's saying something, because carry optics is a extremely competitive
That's where
division.
everybody's at now.
That's where everyone's at. I mean, you'll have over 500 shooters just in carry optics at Carry Optics Nationals.
Yeah.
I mean, one division
Yeah.
has 500 plus shooters. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, that's big.
But yeah, and like Hwansik Kim, which is another high level GM. He's another one of those guys that doesn't shoot live very. It's not like he's shooting 50, 60, 70,000 rounds
Yeah.
a year. It's he's shooting 5,000 rounds a year and doing a ton of dry fire.
Yeah, man, that guy got good really fast. He actually
Yeah.
came out and stayed with me at my house.
Oh, okay.
Several years ago
Yeah.
when he was a B class shooter.
Right.
He stayed at my house.
Oh, because he knows Yang, right?
Yeah, well, I sponsored a JJ Rakaza class.
Okay.
A couple years in a row, and he came out from Washington, and he was, just to help him out financially and stuff like that. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's expensive to take a class like that and travel and all that. So I told him he could stay at my place, and he was B class. And then like a year later, I think it was Eric Steiner was like, "Hey, have you seen your buddy Juancic? The guy's freaking incredible shooter." And I was like, "Oh yeah," I didn't think anything of it. I
Right.
actually hadn't seen him for a while.
Yeah.
Then I look him up, and he's like GM, and I'm like, looking, I was like, "What in the heck?"
Yeah.
That guy got good so fast,
Real
and they were
fast.
asking him what were you doing for training? Like, how often a day are you training? And he's like saying he's training 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, I'm not doing that, so
No.
I'm
And-
obviously it's going to take me a long time to get to that level.
I don't have the patience or the attention span to train for 8 hours a day. But to answer your question, how much am I shooting live fire? Not as much as I used to because of ammo prices.
Yeah.
I do a whole lot more dry fire. Like I just dry fired today. I do. I would say on average probably a 20-minute session because I start to get burnout
Yeah.
and start to make mistakes and get real.
We get fatigued too, your forearms and your wrists. And
Yeah, I get real fatigued after about 20 minutes. So I would say an average session for me is 15 to 20 minutes, several times a week, right? For the build up to like a major match or something like that, I'm dry firing probably sometimes twice a day. I would say at least probably 10 days leading up to that major match. Try to do like two a days or whatever, and my live fire definitely, I get some more live fire in building up to that, like maybe 1,000 to 1,500 rounds that week
Yeah.
before a major.
Yeah.
But before that, it's like I'm live firing kind of every once in a while, not near as much as I used to. I used to shoot about probably 20 to 25,000 rounds a year, just pistol, right? When ammo is 16, 17 cents
Yeah.
for 9mm, right? But that is, I would say I probably don't even shoot half that now,
yeah.
and more of it's dry fire.
I'm hoping to shoot like 20 this year.
Yeah.
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
But going back to, when both of us worked at the site and the merging the comparative stuff with the tactical, I know the site or, DOE, they really emphasize, hey, they'd get the guys, and either they had a shooting team at the time or
Yes.
they would really encourage the guys to go out and shoot competitively.
Yes.
And one of the things I liked is a big emphasis on the shooting, right? Each individual, they wanted you to have a good, be a high-level shooter. And then once you're a high-level shooter, then we're going to start teaching you tactics. And you're going to go. You were not allowed to go into the shoot house until you were what they considered a higher-level shooter, whatever that was. But I see a lot of guys, especially, me branching out and, working in law enforcement, I see a lot of guys on teams that are not very good shooters.
Right.
And I'm sometimes wondering, like, man, maybe you need to go get to a little higher level shooting before you start learning how to room clear. I know you hear X-Ray Alpha on his podcast talking a lot about that. And I know his philosophy is like, hey, you should be at a high level before you learn anything else. He's like, what's your objective as a SRT team or SWAT team during a hostage rescue? Your objective is to be able to get in there and shoot the bad guy and save the hostage, right?
Absolutely.
So if you haven't got to that high level of shooting, let's say you're going out on a hostage rescue, you can have the most awesome approach. You can have the most awesome breach at the door, and you guys can be super awesome and flow real well in the house, room clearing, get to the hostage, and now
shit the bed.
you take a shot and you miss, or worse, hit the hostage, and none of that other stuff matters.
No.
And so that's why I agree with what he says, is like the shooting should be the foundation before you branch out to do other stuff.
I agree 100%. And that's coming from a guy, X-Ray Alpha, that's coming from a guy who has served in the most elite units in the world, right?
Yeah.
CAG, right? And he's a GM in USPSA, right? So I mean, coming from a guy like that, he's 100% right. And how being with a unit like CAG, right, during a lot of the very busy years with that unit, right? How many hostage rescues or rooms has he gone into? A ton. That's all those guys do, right? And coming from him, I agree 100%. And like with DOE produces a lot of good shooters. When you're comparing it to, let's just say, other SWAT teams, other LE units, stuff like that. DOE is kind of known for producing good shooters. They are, and then when you have guys like Benny Cooley and stuff like that are kind of right at your beck and call if you need them.
Multi-world champion. I think that guy's won like 15, 16 world championships and everything from pistol, three
to
gun,
precision to
rifle. Yeah.
I mean everything, and at where we worked, you have Benny Cooley kind of right there.
Benny's still there. He's been there forever.
He's still there.
Used to have Doug Avancic.
He was on the US. He was on the US IPSC team.
Yeah. And Pete,
Pete's a
been there
damn
for a long
good
time.
shooter.
That guy's a high-level shooter back in his day. He used to go to the Soldier Fortune matches.
And they'd win them, right? I mean, DOE is known for sending guys to SWAT competitions, huge SWAT competitions, and they go in and clean house.
Yeah.
They do. And it's, I mean, you can look up results to SWAT competitions and SWAT matches, and DOE is at the top of the list a lot of the times. They are. When it comes to the law enforcement stuff like that, that's probably where they get dinged at some of these SWAT competitions, because that's not really what we do, civilian law enforcement. But when it comes to the shooting stuff, I mean, the DOE guys go in and they clean house, and like going back to you saying that, like, DOE wouldn't let dudes in a shoot house until they were proficient shooters. That's 100% right. And I think that is the way it should be. Everybody wants to do the sexy shit, clearing rooms and doing all this cool stuff. Well, if you can't hit your target, your intended target, with some precision, like
with DOE, while you're practicing it, especially going through the CQB school, if you miss a target,
you're done.
You're done. You're kicked off the team.
100%. Yeah. So going to that, right? So, you go through a selection process to get on SRT. And then if you get picked, right, through that pretty long selection process, they send you to a CQB school. And it's, I think mine was like 6 weeks. And that's pretty much all you're doing, literally all day, every day.
Yeah, you're like 10 hours a day in a shoot house.
I mean, it's insane. I've never done that much CQB in my life. And, if you send
more
one
than your previous jobs.
Yeah, more than, even though we did do CQB stuff, obviously, more personnel recovery type stuff. With DOE, I mean, it was like I said, you're spending 8 to 10 hours in a shoot house every day, all day long, for 6 weeks, and that's just through SRT school. And then when you're on team, you're obviously you're obviously doing the same type of stuff. Probably maybe not as much because you have other stuff going on. But you're doing a ton of CQB, and it's like during SRT school, if you sent one, because it's all live fire shoot house, if you sent one off the target or into a hostage, you're done.
Yeah,
you are done. Like it's not like, hey, Nick, that's okay. We'll do better next time. They're sending your ass down the road.
Yeah,
and now you're going and sitting at a fucking gate or something at the entrance of one of the facilities.
Yeah, then you're a gate guard the rest of the time.
Right.
But
so which is good that they hold you accountable like that.
Yeah.
Because I think some units don't. And I think you should be held accountable.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's military units. I'm sure the high level military units, I'm sure, do something like that. I've never been in the military, but
yeah, for sure. Some of the higher level units, they absolutely.
I don't know of a law enforcement agency that does. At least not local law enforcement.
I don't either, and I wasn't law enforcement, so I can't really get into that because I was never a police officer, never on whatever. But so I can't really get into that because I don't know. But I've just heard through conversations with people and stuff like that is some units like aren't holding dudes accountable for terrible accuracy in a shoot house.
I remember being on a team one day, and we were at the shoot house, and Doug Vancic comes walking through after we did like a dozen runs or whatever, and he's looking at the targets, and he's just like, these look like shit. You guys are done.
Yeah.
You guys get out to the square range. And we were out there for like an hour doing up drills and pivots and turns and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then once the target started looking decent, they let us back in the shoot house.
Yeah.
And there was just a lot of accountability there.
Oh, 100%. And like, yeah, you pay for it. I mean, even if you did hit your intended target, they were very strict on where those shots were placed, right? I mean, It wasn't like, okay, I hit my target, I'm good. No, they were very strict on where those shots were at, right? And you get punished. They would punish us through instilling pain.
You'd either have to you'd run or you'd carry somebody. Or,
yeah, there's a thing called a can run.
Yeah, can runs.
And that was not very pleasant to do in full kit in the middle of summer out on the desert. You know what I mean? And then obviously other ways of making you pay. But yeah, I mean they were, if the instructors weren't happy with how you did a run or how your shots were or something like that, or somebody missed something that they should have gotten or whatever the case might be, you're paying for it. Mm-hmm. You're paying for it. And I truly believe, coming from a military background and stuff like that, I think that is the perfect way to learn is through pain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like, If somebody just gets on your ass and is like, hey, Nick, get your shit together. Okay, yeah, cool, right, I got you. If you make me go fucking pick up a heavy-ass can full of sand, right, and run down and get it, run back, run down in full kit, and I'm sweating my ass off, tired of shit, and making all my buddies do it too that had nothing to do with what I did, right, but we're all a team, right?
Yeah, you screw up, the whole team screws up.
100%, and everybody pays for it. Right, so I think that is, that probably just comes from my military background. Is that's how you learn. I think, yeah, it's one thing getting in somebody's ass or whatever by yelling at them, which they do that too, screaming at you from the catwalk, at the top of their lungs, hey, you idiot, get your shit together. But like, I think through pain is really how you learn, because then you're like, fuck, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah, you don't want to screw your buddies.
100%.
Buddies don't like it either.
No, they don't. They don't.
I don't want to have a blanket party later or nothing like that. So.
Right, exactly. You learn not to fuck up when that happens.
Yeah.
So.
Well, cool. I know you kind of briefly went over your background. Mm-hmm. You got other stuff you want to go in a little bit more detail about some of that? Maybe the Marine Corps, maybe some of your contracting stuff. And you got any specific incidents in any of those units that you want to maybe debrief, help some of the younger guys by learning some of the stuff that you went through?
Yeah. Maybe probably Marine Corps. For guys that might listen to this.
Did you go in right out of high school?
I did. So,
so you were just a young kid, huh?
I was 18. So 9/11 happened September 2001, right?
Where were you?
I was doing a construction job.
Were you out of high school then?
I was. I graduated in June of 01. And then signed up for the Marine Corps, signed the papers or whatever, July of 01. Right, so I was already signed up for the Marine Corps when September 11th happened. Like a lot of my peers and stuff like that joined after that happened. I actually signed up like 2 months. Yeah, 2 months before that happened.
So you were just waiting for your date?
I was, yeah. You have they have certain slots on like when you go to boot camp and stuff like that, and they kind of give you an option like, hey, you graduated high school in June, when do you want to go to boot camp? And I was like, being an 18-year-old kid, you're like kind of trying to, well, I want to spend a little more time at home, like that, that type of shit.
So what made you want to join the Marine Corps in the first place?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. Like, ever since I was a little kid, I've just always been like interested in that type of I don't know, like the military or a firefighter or a police officer or whatever, just that kind of like work or that kind of job. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I wasn't the type of kid that was a nerd, or I was a terrible student. So like I wasn't going to be the next, kid going to Harvard or something.
Cops
like
and
that.
robbers.
Right. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I just had an interest in that stuff ever since I was like a little kid. And then I had two cousins that were Marines that are older than me. Right. So they kind of sparked a little more interest, with them being Marines and stuff like that. And like, I was set on joining the military since I was a little kid. And then like the recruiters didn't have to come to me in high school. Right. I was already set on what I was doing. And that just comes from when I was a little kid. So
did you go knock on their door or walk into their office and say I was going to join, or?
What did I do? Oh, I actually, so recruiters hang out at high schools, right? So I saw the Marine Corps recruiter at my high school, right? So I went up to them. Like, they didn't have to come to me. A lot of guys, they have to go to them and try to convince them to recruit them to join the military, right?
Bribe you with some money.
Yeah, right. Yeah, with the Marine Corps, you're not getting much of that. But yeah, and I went up to them and I just kind of asked them like, hey, what do I have to do, to join and whatever. And they kind of they tell you like, hey, come down to the recruiting office on this day if you can. And the recruiting office, well, living in Haley, the recruiting office, the nearest one was in Twin Falls, right? So, which is 70 miles down the road. So I, went in there and, talked to him, just kind of asked him some things. And, just as an 18-year-old kid, you're kind of like, I don't know, you don't even know what to ask.
Yeah.
Really. You're just like, I want to be a Marine, because you see all these posters and like they know how to do it.
All the gung-ho stuff.
All the gung-ho stuff. That's how every recruiting office is. You know what I mean? You walk into a Navy recruiting office, it's all posters of SEALs and stuff like that, not some dude scrubbing a deck on a ship, right? So Marine Corps is the same way, right? So went there and just kind of asked them how I did it and stuff like that, and basically signed up. Made sure my parents were good with it. I mean, it didn't really matter because I was 18, so, whatever. But, you always want to run it by your folks.
Yeah. Were they supportive?
They were, 100%. Not knowing that I would be in combat soon after, right? The parents don't know that stuff, and September 11th hadn't even happened yet.
Well, yeah, before that, we didn't have a whole lot going on as far as wars and stuff.
No, there was
We
nothing.
had the first Desert Storm back in whenever.
Yeah, and then Mogadishu in 93, but that was only, certain units that were there. That wasn't like a huge conflict, right? So yeah, there was nothing going on from 91 clear up to 01, right? And then, but yes, my parents were very supportive of it. They're very, very pro-military.
Like, go get the GI Bill, son.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So, yeah, they were supportive of it. And then I went to boot, and then September 11th happened in, September. And then, I went to boot camp 2 months later.
So what were you doing?
I was just doing
when the plane hit the towers.
When the plane hit the towers, I was getting ready to go to work. Yep, I was getting ready to go to work. I was working for one of my dad's buddies that owned a construction company. I wasn't going to sit around the house. Well, I wasn't allowed to sit around the house all summer. So it was like, you're going to go get a job. And my dad had a buddy that owned a construction company. And as an 18-year-old kid, you're going to be the kid doing all the grunt work, right? Mm-hmm. So I was basically just doing that, just doing grunt work for a construction company.
Did you watch it on TV?
I did. So I woke up for work, and a guy that was supposed to come pick me up for work, one of my buddies that I was working with, called me and was like, "Hey, turn the TV on. A plane just hit the World Trade Center in New York." And I was like, "Oh shit!" And my folks were, because I was still living with my folks. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? 18, I hadn't moved out yet, but so we turned the TV on or whatever, and sure as shit, one of the World Trade Center buildings was I can't remember what one was hit first, but it doesn't really matter. One of them was, smoking, obviously, big plume of smoke coming out of it because it had just been hit by an airplane, right? And then, we're sitting there watching it, and sure as shit, here comes number 2. And it was like, oh, fuck. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, so it was just like, wow. And then, the Pentagon got hit, and then, yeah, it's like my parents at that point were kind of like, oh shit, because I signed up to be in the infantry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like I wasn't signing up for the Marine Corps to go be in a non-combat MOS, right? So I signed up 03 contract, which 03 is just a designator, right? You have designators for your MOSs, and any 03 designator is infantry, right, in the Marine Corps. So I was just went in on an 03 contract. So yeah, I was a infantry contract, and it's like, okay,
Front line.
100%, because if shit happens, Marines are going. I mean, that's just how it is. Like, that's what kind of unit or organization or branch or whatever the Marine Corps is, right? You're crisis. You're one of the main crisis response forces for the United States. Ranger Regiment, the Marine Corps, and the 82nd Airborne are your big units that are your main primary crisis response forces for the country.
So then, when you saw the second plane hit the towers, did you like, I need it, I want to be going to war? Or what were you thinking then?
See, I don't know. God, that was 23 years ago. I can't remember what my thought process was, to be honest with you. I definitely had an oh shit moment. But like at 18 years old, you're so like...
I was like about 30 years old, and I remember I was home when that happened, and I was actually getting ready to go to work. We were going to have a training day, and I remember watching that, and I was just like, that's crazy. And, you're just like, you don't know what to think. You're like, man, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then I remember getting to the sheriff's office, and they had like their incident command system had been set up. We had a basement with TVs and phones and radios and everything else, because nobody knew.
Nobody knew what was going on. Right.
So, but it wasn't like I thought, oh, I'm going to war like you.
Right. There was definitely an oh shit moment. But like I said, as an 18-year-old, you're kind of like, you just want to go to the military so bad, and like that's what you signed up to do, and blah blah blah. Not really realizing what those because we didn't know what those attacks were gonna bring. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't know it was gonna lead to. We didn't know it was gonna lead to 20 years of wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. You know what I mean? Like, this had just happened, and the country was like, didn't know what was going on. So yeah, like I said, there was like that moment, but then it was just like, I didn't really realize what the future was bringing, because you don't know. You're not even in the military yet. You know what I mean? So then
how long after 9/11 happened did you go into the Marine Corps?
So I went into boot camp November of 2001. Yep. So went to San Diego. So like, if you live on the if you live west of the Mississippi, you go to San Diego for boot camp. If you live east of the Mississippi, you go to Parris Island, South Carolina. Okay. So obviously, living in Idaho, I went San Diego, and then so boot camp is 13 weeks long, right? And it's just a haze fest. I mean, you're just getting your dick ran in the dirt. You're like the lowest scum on earth. I mean, Marine Corps DIs are drill instructors. They hate you. I mean, they despise recruits. They make your life fucking miserable, right?
Yeah.
And there's a whole purpose to it. You know, I knew what I was getting myself into. It's not like I was like showed up to boot camp and I was like, what did I do? What did I get myself into? I knew what I was getting myself into. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just tried to stay the gray man in boot camp. You know what I mean? I tried to stay the dude that tried to stay unnoticed, because you don't want to be the noticed dude, or the dude that gets noticed, because your life is going to be miserable for 13 weeks.
They don't want spotlight on you.
Yeah, absolutely not. So like I
Probably
tried.
good or bad, right? You don't want to be the...
You don't want to be the all-star either.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the all-star, because then they look at that like, oh, this kid thinks he's hot shit. You know what I mean? So it's like, and then they'll thrash you for that too.
Yeah.
Right. So I tried to stay the gray man as much as possible. I mean, obviously there's times where like they caught you doing something, or they caught you screwing something or whatever, and you kind of get picked out of the crowd and you're like, oh fuck. You know what I mean? But that, honestly, that didn't happen very often to me.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying that, like, I mean, everybody gets their ass chewed, their ass kicked, their whatever, but some get a lot more attention than others, right? And you don't want to be that. You don't want to be that guy. So I graduated boot camp after 13 weeks, and then you go home for like a week or something like that, and then being an infantry guy, you go to the School of Infantry. So that was on Camp Pendleton for West Coast guys. You go to School of Infantry, and then you kind of pick your MOS there. So there's several MOSs in the infantry, right? And you kind of get a choice. I guess you don't get many choices in the Marine Corps, but you kind of get a dream sheet of what MOS you want to be. So I put in for a couple different MOSs, and 0331 machine gunner was my top choice. And I actually got that. So you go to infantry school, and then like the Marine Corps infantry is different from the Army infantry, where the Marine Corps infantry, your MOS designators, that is your specialty, right? So like a machine gunner, right? That is your specialty. That is your bread and butter. That's all you do.
And so as a machine gunner, is that like a M240, you're shooting a 50 or what?
Yep, so 240s, right? So when I was in, it was 240 Golfs.
Aren't 240 guys carrying 240 Golfs kind of little muscular?
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
I wouldn't, because we had to qual with one when I was with DOE, right? We had M240s.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to carry one of those around.
No, and then carrying 50s and all that is a whole nother thing. So so Marine Corps machine gunners, their primary weapon systems are the M240, whatever model. Right, when I was in, it was the Golf model.
Yeah, the M240 Golf, what replaced the M60, right?
Correct. Yep. And then there's variants of the M240, right? And then the M2 Browning 50 cal, and then the Mark 19, which is an automatic grenade launcher. Shoots about 350 grenades in a minute.
Nice.
So those are your three primary weapon systems as a machine gunner in the Marine Corps, right? So in the Marine Corps you have a specialty, right? And that is like I said, that's your bread and butter, and you are an expert when it comes to those weapon systems and how to employ those weapon systems in combat. Where the Army, not knocking on the Army or anything, or their infantry, their infantry guys are you're just kind of thrown in. You're an infantryman, and you don't really have a specialty. Like, you're just kind of like, you kind of do it all in the Army infantry, right? Where Marine Corps infantry, you have a specialty, which I like that better, because then you have actually experts on those weapon systems.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yep. So as a machine gunner. And, being a machine gunner is awesome. It's, you are the backbone of the battlefield for sure, because you have belt-fed weapon systems, right?
Yeah, I always liked shooting that M240. I always thought that was fun.
Yeah.
We'd shoot, we didn't have 50s that were machine guns, but we had some
Barretts,
sniper rifles.
Yeah, Barretts and stuff like that. Yep.
I did not like shooting those things.
I
man.
hate shooting a Barrett.
It's not even the recoil is not even bad, but it's that concussion from that muzzle brake, man. It's just like, it gives you a headache, man.
It does.
I do not like. It's not fun.
It's not, and
I shoot the M240 all day though.
Oh, 100%. Oh, 100%. You know, and like, you know, these people that see a Barrett or whatever, like, oh, I want to shoot that, you know, like civilians and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you can have that thing. Because we still had them on SRT when I was out there.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's for anti-material and stuff like that. Yeah, it's, you know, and we obviously had to shoot them and stuff like that and shoot them every few months or whatever, do like, you know, certain things with them. But, yeah, it's like you can have that thing. You can have that thing, you know? I mean, if I do need to use it for an anti-material type scenario or whatever, yeah, I would be glad I had it. But I don't want to go out and shoot a Barrett all
just for
day.
fun.
Yeah, no thanks.
Because it's not fun.
It's not fun. It's not. So, but yeah, so yeah, being a machine gunner, you know, and then, so in 2002, so this was 2001, and then into 2002 actually, and then I got sent to my unit, right? So you go to School of Infantry, do all that, which is several months long. You get sent to a unit, right? So basically it works. Whatever units need dudes at that time is kind of how they do it. Like, okay, 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines needs this many guys, blah, blah, blah. So you're like, okay, you're going to 2nd Battalion, or whatever the case might be, right? And I say 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines because that's the unit that I was with, right? There's several different infantry battalions and regiments and stuff like that. I was with 8th Marine Regiment, based out of North Carolina, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Right, so you go to your unit, and then that's where you really learn the ins and outs of being a Marine, right? Like, yes, boot camp, that's just to get you discipline. That's more of a discipline type deal.
Discipline, get a good baseline, right?
Good baseline to break you down from being a civilian into a Marine, right? You're not learning anything about, like, tactics or combat or anything like that in boot camp, really, right? That's not really what it's for, right? School of Infantry, that's where you're learning a lot of your stuff. And then when you get to your actual unit, that's where you learn, like, the bread and butter of employing weapon systems in combat and doing all that stuff, and how Marines operate and stuff like that is when you get to your unit, right? So, you know, you do that. You're at your unit, and then you're kind of just, you know, as a grunt, you're kind of just like standing by in a way. Like, yeah, you're obviously training and stuff like that, but like as a grunt, you're like working out every day, you know, getting up at 4 a.m, going and running, doing stuff like that, and then you're doing, you know, if there's trainings going on, then you're doing training and stuff like that. But it's like, as a grunt, it's not like you're going to like a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're kind of hanging out a lot of the time. Like, in a way, I guess you could describe it as like being on like a full-time SWAT team or something, right?
Being on standby for something to happen.
Yeah, you're just kind of just on standby or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So like that's kind of how it is. And then
It's like being a fireman with a gun. You just sit around.
yeah, you just sit around, right? Yeah, wait for something to happen. And that's exactly what you're doing. You know, and then, so this was in 2002. And then, you know, Iraq stuff started kicking up, you know, that whole deal, started kicking up, rumors of that, you know, of us possibly going to Iraq and all that started kicking up. This was late 2002. So yeah, we got sent home on leave, right? And we were like, why are they sending us home? That's kind of weird. Nobody had told us anything yet, right? So we were like, why are they sending us home?
Were you guys kind of monitoring kind of the stuff that was going on in Afghanistan, though, at the time?
Yeah, because Afghanistan was 01. Yeah, that's right. That kicked off in 01, late 01. Yeah, so you're obviously like, you know, aware of that and just kind of waiting for word, like, are we going to Afghanistan? What's the deal? And then the Iraq thing started kicking up, right? And then we started getting rumors that that our unit was getting selected to go to Iraq, right? So they sent us home on leave, right? And we're like, okay, like, this is kind of weird, right? So went home on leave, whatever, saw the family, came back, and yeah, like, we got word that we were going to stage in Kuwait, because this was in early 03, right, where Nothing had happened in Iraq yet. This was pre-invasion, right? So this was early. This was January of 2003 is when this happened, right? And when we got word, okay, we're going to Iraq, whatever. And then we hopped on ships and set sail from North Carolina to across the pond, right? So a lot of people don't realize that the Marine Corps is a department of the Navy, right? So Marines ride on ships quite often, right? So that's how we got from point A to point B from North Carolina over to the Persian Gulf, right? And then we offloaded for hopped on helos and got dropped into Kuwait.
So where did you guys deploy to, or where did you land at initially?
In Kuwait.
Right, in Kuwait,
Yeah,
that was
so-
your first stop there?
Yeah, this is
Okay.
pre-invasion. So the invasion hadn't even kicked off yet, right? So we were just staging. We were basically staging for the invasion, right? So we stayed. So there was there were these huge camps of troops, right? Marine Corps units, Army units, whatever, British units, all sorts of stuff, right? Coalition forces, right? So we staged in Kuwait, right? And then this was like February, and the invasion didn't kick off until March, right? Like mid-March. Well, the 20th of March is when we crossed the border into Iraq. So we staged in Kuwait for like 5 weeks, and we were just like, it was like the hurry up and wait type shit. Right, hurry up and wait. Okay, what are we doing? We're literally sitting in the fucking desert, in the sand, because Kuwait is just sand, right? And we're sleeping on the ground and shit and whatever for 5 or 6 weeks, right? Waiting for word. What's going on? Nobody had word. What we were doing? Like, are we packing up and just gonna go home? Like all this shit, Obviously, all the stuff in DC was happening, where they're the ones making the decisions. Right, we didn't know any of that shit, and then we got the word like, "Hey, we're moving into Iraq," right? So we packed up all our shit and we started advancing towards Iraq for the invasion, right? And this was March 20th of 2003.
So you were there at the very beginning.
Very beginning. Yep. So it kicked off March 20th, and we crossed the border that night. And then, so our first stop was Al-Naziriyah, which is a city in southern Iraq, and that was, so that was our first, our first stop, right? So, and that was at the time, during the invasion and stuff. The Battle of Al-Naziriyah was one of the heaviest fighting battles in the invasion of Iraq. And one of the heaviest in the Iraq War. I mean, yes, you have Fallujah and stuff like that, Ramadi that were very heavy. But yeah, Al-Naziriyah is on that list of being one of the heavier battles, with Marines during the invasion. So yeah, I was part of that whole deal, and then that was a whole thing in itself. Staging for that and staging to go into the city. And that whole deal as an 18-year-old, or no, I was 19 at the time, but yeah, as a 19-year-old kid.
Were you regretting going in the Marine Corps at that time?
No, not regretting it, but I was definitely like.
I mean, because when you're young, you think way differently than you do now.
Oh, 100%. At 40 years old now, I would be thinking completely differently than what I was at 18 or 19. So
what was your thought process going in there?
Okay, so we staged at the outskirts of the city first, right? And the unit ahead of us, which was 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines, which was part of our task force, right? They went in first in Al-Naziriyah, and it was like going into a hornet's nest, basically, right? So 1-2, which would be 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines, went in first before us, and they were just getting fucking lit up, right? And we're getting all these intel dumps on what's going on, what 1-2's doing, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're going, oh, shit. Yeah. Like, this is the real fucking deal here. And when we were staged outside the city, there was artillery, U.S. artillery, going crazy, right? So artillery, for the listeners who don't know what artillery is, think of it as your big wheels on guns, or your big guns on wheels, excuse me. So like 155 millimeter, there's 105s, there's different size shells or whatever, but these were 155s, which is a huge round, right? So they had a whole battery lined up, and they were just hammering the city. They were just hammering the city, and you're just going, oh shit. Like, you're watching this and going, and thinking to yourself, going, this isn't a training scenario. This is like, those artillery batteries are firing shells at real targets that are being called in.
Real people. Right?
Real people and real targets that are being called in from forward observers that are in the city right now, you know? And you're going, oh, fuck. And that's when it really hit me, and I was like, oh, shit.
Like, we're not training anymore.
I was like, oh, shit. Like, this is real. And, like, in the distance, you know, the city, there was, you know, plumes of smoke coming up and all sorts of shit, and you knew 1-2 was already in there. And they're like, okay, 2-8, you're going in. You're going into the city. And that's where it was like, oh, fuck. And, like, it you know, anybody who's been to combat or whatever the situation might be, if you try to tell me that you weren't a little scared, or your heart wasn't pumping, or you started to have some second thoughts about some things, you either have something wrong or you're full of shit. You know, I get like if a LE guy gets in a shooting like that, like right away, you don't have time to process it really, right? But when you're staging outside of somewhere,
yeah, you're building up to it.
You're building up to it. You start you get nervous, you get scared, you get, you know, whatever the word is for it. You know, not scared where you're pissing your pants or whatever, because you've trained and stuff like that. But yeah, so we got the word that we were going into Al-Nazaria, you know, and then we started our push in Al-Nazaria. And yeah, so soon as you get in, you literally you're getting ambushed and shit.
So when you're going in, try to kind of paint a picture for those who are listening.
Yep.
Is this like a convoy of a bunch of Humvees and a bunch of trucks? Or
Yep.
What does that look like?
Yep. So trucks with a bunch of grunts in the back of them, and then Humvees with like machine guns mounted on top and stuff like that.
Man, did you guys have armored Humvees
No.
back then, or no?
Nope.
'Cause I can remember watching the news, and a lot of military guys were going, "Hey, we've been asking the Clinton administration for,
Yeah.
you know, for armored Humvees, and they're not giving them to us."
Right. So no, we were in soft skins at the time. So soft skin Humvees, which, you know, an AK round or something like that, it'll rip right through that shit, you know. So yeah, soft skins, and then yeah, so we were going in to support 1-2, who was getting hammered in the city. So yeah, we were going to basically be the dudes coming in to support them, and then, you know, you obviously disperse from there in the city to strategic areas or whatever. Like, they're going to send a platoon over here, a company over here,
Yeah.
you know, blah blah blah, and that's kind of how you do it. And our objective was to take that city, so the bigger units could come through for the push to Baghdad, because that was the ultimate goal, right? Was to push to Baghdad and take Baghdad. I mean, during the invasion, that was the ultimate goal, right? And our objective was to take that city and secure that city, so they could push through, and then we would follow in behind once they push through. Well, we didn't know, because intel is intel, right? Some of it's good, some of it's complete shit, right? And that's kind of how it works. We were getting intel that Al-Nazaria wasn't going to be that bad, right? There wasn't going to be much of a fight in Al-Nazaria. You might get a little bit of, you know, here and there, a little bit of resistance, I guess would be the word, right? And it was the complete opposite of that. Complete opposite of that, right? Where Marine units are in heavy combat at this point, right? So yeah, we went in, and it took us several days to secure the city. We did secure the city, right? and the bigger elements pushed through to Baghdad, and then we followed in tail.
And when you say you guys were taking, I guess if you guys were taking fire, what kind of, was it just small arms fire like AK, or was it anything bigger than AK rounds, or what were they shooting at?
AKs, belt fed, so like PKMs, RPKs, stuff like that, RPGs, all the tanks and stuff like that had been destroyed by our air and our tank divisions or units. Right, so during the invasion, this is before the insurgency kicked off. So during the invasion, we were fighting the actual military. Mm-hmm. We were fighting the Iraqi military.
Yeah.
Right, and then the insurgency is what came after.
And when you say insurgency, that's when you're getting
Foreign fighters,
kind of freedom fighters, guys come from other countries saying, "Hey, I want to come help."
Correct. Yep. Jihad.
They want to help the Iraqis.
Exactly. You have a lot of foreign fighters coming in from Jordan, Syria, Saudi, surrounding countries.
And
right?
did it become
countries.
more difficult for you guys at that point?
Yes, I think so.
After the insurgency,
I think so, because you don't know who you're fighting at that point. You're not fighting a uniformed. You're not fighting a uniformed military at that point. It's guerrilla warfare, right? So when you're fighting a uniformed military, you know who you're fighting. Yeah. Right? When it is an insurgency, you don't know who you're fighting. And that's like the scary part about it. So it's like you'll have a dude walk down the street with a white flag on a stick, waving the white flag at you, going, don't shoot, blah, blah, blah. All he's doing is gaining intel on you, where you're at, where you're sitting, blah, blah, blah. 10 minutes later, that dude that was just walking down the street with the white flag is fucking shooting at you with a PKM from a window.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like that's the tough part about it.
So you were a machine gunner
Yes.
during this time? Uh-huh. So do you remember when you first started pulling the trigger?
I do. So entering the city, there was like a little overpass thing going into the city, and there was a grove of palm trees to the left. Yeah, to the left side going in, right? And I'm on a Humvee with a 50 cal machine gun at the time, right? And you hear snaps coming over your head, right? When a round's close or whatever, it snaps. Mm-hmm. So you hear snaps. You have no clue where it's coming from, right? You're like, where the fuck is this coming from? Like, all I know is I'm getting shot at, right? Yeah. So I look over to the palm grove, right? And I'm like, pretty sure it's fucking coming from there, because you have some sort of directional, like where it's coming from. You're like, okay, dude, I think it's coming from over here. So I just start, being a machine gunner, you're just laying fucking lead. Like that is what you're doing. So I just started laying down fire in the palm grove, right? And then, the shooting stops, right? And then after that, like all the resources that you have being in the U.S. military, it's like, dude, let's just call in air on this fucking palm grove, because the palm grove was pretty big, right? So
how far away was that?
Probably 100 yards. I mean, the palm grove came up basically to the road, or maybe probably 20, 30 yards from the road, but the palm grove stretched probably 100 yards, right? And somewhere in that area was where this fire was coming from. And having all the resources that you have in the military, it's like, dude, let's just fucking call in air on these fuckers and get rid of them. So we call in gunships, right, that have miniguns and shit, door gunners with miniguns, and they just come in and fucking annihilate the entire palm grove in a matter of seconds, and that's it. It's done. The shooting's gone. No more shooting, whatever the case might be, right?
Yeah.
So, like in the military, and when you're going into certain situations like that, like into a city or something, it's you're just getting shot at, and you're like, where the fuck is this coming from?
It's coming from all different directions.
It's coming from all different directions. So I'm just gonna start shooting, in hopes that they go, oh fuck, that gun's way bigger than my gun. I'm gonna bounce out of here or whatever, right? So
So were you seeing muzzle flashes?
Yeah, seeing muzzle flashes or dust come up or something like that. So you have a direction or an area of where it's coming from, right? So then you lock on to that area, whether it's a building or whatever the case might be, and then you're just laying down fire on that building. Is kind of how that works, right? So it's just you're getting shot at and you're just shooting back, and then obviously and then you're just getting in contact, at different periods of time. Like you might not have combat or contact for several hours or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're just kind of hanging out or whatever, or you're over here, and all of a sudden the shooting starts again or something like that. And then you're like, oh, fuck. All right, where's it coming from? Blah, blah, blah. Lay down fire on there. It stops. Okay. We either eliminate them or they said, we're out of here. Right. So it's a lot of stuff like that. Like, was I going into houses, kicking down doors, doing CQB and stuff like that? No, because I was a machine gunner. Right? Yeah. You're basically, as a machine gunner, like I said earlier, you're like the backbone of the infantry, right? You're a support element. So you are the dude laying down fire for troops advancing, basically, right? So if troops want to, say you get shot at from a building or something, and troops want to close in on that building, advance on that building, make entry or whatever, you are laying down fire why they are making that advance, right? So you're laying down, whatever, bursts or whatever the case might be while they are advancing or whatever.
And how long did this go on? Like your first, I guess, the first day, did this gunfire kind of go on?
Throughout the day. Yeah, throughout the day into the night. And then they kind of stopped at night because we had night vision capability, thermal capability, stuff like that. They didn't, right? So it kind of slows down a little bit at night. And then morning comes and it kind of picks up again. But it's not it wasn't like every single day, all day, you're just in firefights. That's not how it was. Some guys might try to blow smoke and say that type of shit, but that's not how it was. I mean, yeah, you're getting in firefights and stuff like that, but some of them are pretty short-lived. And then some of them might be a little more extended or whatever, a 20-minute firefight or something like that. But it's like I said, it wasn't all day, every day. You're just in the shit, I mean, there's a lot of time where there's not a lot going on.
So how did it go as far as your perspective? What were you thinking as a young kid?
Yeah.
Right? You're in there, say you're the stress is building up, and then you're moving, and you start. From the first time you start shooting, and then as the day goes on, do you kind of start to get acclimated to
you do.
There's gunfire, and you're just hey, I'm just at work today.
You do.
How does that?
It's very weird, and you can probably attest to this. You almost get used to getting shot at, right? Or oh, there was an explosion over there. It wasn't really near me, so it not really my my problem or oh, what was that or whatever, you know what I mean? The further you get into it and the longer you've been there, the more used to it you get, which is really weird to think about, but it's true. To where sometimes it's not even a big fucking deal. You're you hear a round snap over your head or something, you're oh, where'd that come from? You know what I mean? You're not freaking out anymore. Yeah. You're and then maybe it was just one round. Maybe it's some dude fucking just taking a pop shot at you because they saw you sitting there, right? And then he takes that pop shot at you and he bounces, right? It could be that or whatever, but it's you get to the point where you just kind of get used to it. You kind of get numb to it, I guess would be the word. Or
you just accept that you're there.
You do, right? And it ain't like you're leaving. You know what I mean? It's not like you can just pack up shop and go home because you don't want to be there. You're there, and you have a mission, you have an objective, and you have to fulfill that mission and that objective. And when you do, and then you move on to the next whatever objective, right? So, but yeah, to best describe it, it's when you watch a movie or whatever of some infantry guys getting in a firefight. Like, that's what it's like.
Yeah.
You know, you're just fucking, okay, we're getting shot at. All right, let's.
Is there any one incident that kind of stuck out for you, like maybe you've thought about often, or it seems like when you look back in your career, especially when you have a long career, that seems like there's one or two things that kind of stick out, and other things that you forget about until somebody brings it up.
Yeah. On Azaria again, like we got, so there was a platoon that was in heavy fighting. They got ambushed, right? And we were called in to support that platoon that was in a heavy firefight, right? So we got called in. They're like, obviously call us on the radio. Hey, we need fucking heavy guns over here, which heavy guns are 50 cals and Mark 19s. Those are your heavy guns, right? So they were in a heavy engagement. We got called in. We showed up and getting shot at 100%. These Marines are on the ground, with 240s and stuff like that, engaging. Show up in a Humvee with a 50 cal, and I just start laying hate, pretty much, right?
You were running the 50?
Yep, running 50 cal, and my my assistant gunner, was just feeding me ammo cans, right? Because you're running out. So a 50 cal shoots 450 to 550 a minute, right? So you're just laying fire down, right? So he just 50 cal ammo can holds 100 rounds, belted ammunition. So my A gunner's just feeding me ammo cans. The barrel's red hot, right? And I'm just laying down. And this firefight lasted probably 30 minutes, right? And we had some casualties, right? There were a couple guys in my platoon that got hit, right? And a couple guys in the platoon that was initially engaged. I think they were from Gulf Company. There's some guys in there that got hit, right? So there were some casualties. Our Humvees were getting fucking peppered with shit. Like, there was in one of our Humvees in the windows, I don't know how the round didn't go through the window, but it didn't. But there was a 7.62 by 3.9 round stuck in the fucking window, like inside.
Like, it didn't make it all the way through. Like,
yeah, it didn't make it. It may have hit something, but prior to that, and it kind of ricocheted off and went into the window because like I said, we didn't have armored Humvees at this time, so it was softkin. Yeah, the windows on those Humvees are pretty. They're pretty thick and they're pretty hard, but they weren't ballistic windows, right? So we had some casualties. One of my good buddies got shot in the shoulder, blew his shoulder out. Obviously, it was probably an AK round or something like that, right? He got shot in the shoulder, blew that out. And then there were just other casualties, stuff like that. Then you start doing you have a job to do, right? You, as a machine gunner, you have a job to lay down fire and get the job done, right? Your job at that point isn't to start tending to casualties, right? You have medics and stuff for that. But yeah, that's where that whole process started, where medevacs had to be called in and that whole deal. And that firefight lasted it was 30 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the medevac process comes, and you're kind of like, when you see your buddy getting medevac, or a dude in your platoon or whatever getting medevac because he just got his shoulder fucking blown out from an AK round, you're like, oh fuck, this is, and at that point you kind of want you want revenge in a way, right? And it's good or bad, whatever. Yeah. We're in their country, whatever. I'm doing a job, right? And they don't want us there, whatever. Are we the good guys or are they the good? Who knows, right? but you kind of want revenge at that point when you see some of your buddies get getting medevac. Nobody got killed in that firefight, but definitely some casualties. Yeah, and it was mostly, we had mortars come in on us also. So I think it was a combination of mortars, which obviously sent a bunch of shrapnel everywhere. So it was a combination of that and small arms fire where the casualties came from, right? So we had mortars starting dropping on us and stuff like that. But yeah, that's an incident that kind of sticks in my mind, for sure, because of the casualties and stuff like that, and the length of the firefight.
Yeah, that's quite a long time.
Yeah, for 30 minutes, I mean, I don't even know how many cans of ammo I went through.
So did you have to change out barrels?
I didn't. I should have.
Right.
Absolutely, I should have. But a 50 cal barrel takes a long time to change out. It's not like a 240 barrel where you just, push the lever, pop it open, it pops off, you pop on a new barrel, you have a barrel swap within a matter of seconds, right? But a 50 cal barrel is also a lot thicker and a lot more heavy duty than a 240 barrel. A 50 cal barrel weighs 24 pounds.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a lot more heavy duty. Should I have changed it out? Yeah, but in the middle of a firefight, when there's still rounds coming down range at me, I'm not going to start unscrewing a barrel.
Those barrels start to get hot, like I know they're
red
hot,
hot.
but I mean, do they get red hot?
Red hot.
You start to see them
Red hot.
red glow.
Yeah, red hot. And the thing is, like with a 50 cal, like I said, you have to unscrew the thing, screw it back in, and you have to do head spacing timing on it. So it's not like
It takes a while.
It takes a long time to change out a 50 cal barrel, right? It's a process. It's not like 240 barrel.
Yeah.
Yep. So no, I did not change out a barrel. I should have. One of my buddies next to me that was also shooting a 50 cal, same deal. I mean, we got done with that firefight and there was smoke like everywhere coming off of our guns.
Yeah.
Coming off of
I'll
our
bet.
guns. Yeah. Yep.
So then how long were you over in Iraq?
Okay, so the first time in 03 during the invasion, we were there for a few months. So we made the push up to Baghdad. My unit didn't actually even go into Baghdad. We kind of stayed on the outskirts of Baghdad when the bigger Marine Corps elements actually took Baghdad and stuff like that. We stayed on the outskirts, so we didn't go into Baghdad. So we were there for a few months. Went in March and left in like late May.
And then did you go back again?
To Iraq?
Yeah.
Yeah, in 05. And then Afghanistan in between that. So we got back from Iraq, and then they, like 5 months later, we pumped out to Afghanistan.
Wow.
So we were which is pretty quick turnaround.
A lot different in Iraq than Afghanistan, right?
100%.
You guys are more urban when you were in Iraq.
Yep.
Afghanistan's more mountainous. And,
Yep. Afghanistan's more like Idaho.
Yeah.
It's got very mountainous.
Well, I know they had some tier 1 guys coming here quite often to Idaho to train in the mountains here.
Yep. Up in the Haley area,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, they come to Idaho to do a lot of that stuff and train in the mountain, do high angle shooting and stuff like that. But Afghanistan's a lot more mountainous, a lot more rural. Yes, there's deserts in Afghanistan also, but not as much as Iraq. It's if I had to explain it, it's a lot like Idaho, really. Yeah, where you kind of have everything deserts, real rocky. It's real rocky.
And did you encounter same type of resistance firefights over in Afghanistan?
I would say not as much. I like the Afghanistan deployment a lot better, but when it came to get troops in contact, getting in contact, I would say not as much.
A lot less?
Yeah, a lot less. Yeah, yes, there were times, but it wasn't. We weren't invading a country. You know what I mean? We weren't staging outside of cities and going in cities to actually take that city, right? It was more, we were doing more counterinsurgency work, augmenting. So we were on little teeny fire bases, in the middle of nowhere. Kunar province was the main province that we worked out of, which is, Karengal Valley. I don't know if you've heard of the Karengal Valley. Yeah, so that's Kunar province, right? Mm-hmm. Which the Kunar province is like Indian country. I mean, it's you're out in the mountains and it's you're right on the Pac border. That's where a lot of shit comes through. So there's a lot of activity up there, but not necessarily you're getting into firefights every single day and it's heavy combat.
Yeah.
It's more guerrilla tactics for sure, and that's how Afghanistan was kind of the entire time, was more guerrilla warfare, more guerrilla tactics.
Yeah.
We got IED'd, stuff like that, but it was more up there. It was more counterinsurgency type stuff, and we were augmenting an SF unit that was at the same fire base that we were at. I think they were from 19th Group, which is they were out of Utah. Yeah.
And weren't firefights over there more like long distance?
Yes.
Versus like in Iraq?
Versus
it's urban,
close.
right? So,
Yep. So like you might be getting shot at from like 300-400 yards away
Yeah.
in Afghanistan. You know what I mean? Where sometimes it's like, okay, that's not even really that much of a threat. you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where Iraq, it's like, you're in a city.
Yeah.
It's like going downtown Boise or something. You start getting shot at from this
So-
building down onto the street. It's a lot different.
You were Iraq, Afghanistan,
And then Iraq again.
and then Iraq again, huh?
Yes, in '05. Yep.
How many total deployments did you do?
So I did 3 deployments in the military, in the Marine Corps, right? Iraq twice, Afghanistan once, and then contracting
And then, so
several.
let's go into that just a little bit. Just,
'Kay.
I know there's a lot of things you probably don't want to talk about, but if you can be just kind of general going over. So you get out of the Marine Corps,
Yep.
and then you got into contracting.
Yeah. So got out of the Marine Corps. Kind of was burnt out, and I was 22 years old when I got out. So I was like, I thought the grass was greener, and I was still young, so I was like, oh, I want to be a civilian.
Yeah.
Like whatever. I'm over this, or that. And most dudes do get out. They really do. A lot of guys just get out. So I got out, and I was kind of over it, and kind of just got a regular job for a while.
Yeah.
I was just working in the aviation industry for a little while, at the airport in Haley. And then I started to get the itch again,
Yeah.
where I was like, okay, like I don't really, being a civilian isn't what it's all cracked up to be. You know what I mean? Doing basically a 9 to 5 or whatever. So I was like, started getting the itch again, and
Your mom was probably like, hey, this is cool having you back.
oh, she was absolutely after doing 3
Yeah.
deployments. Yeah, as a Marine Corps infantryman, yeah, she was. She was a wreck when I was gone. But anyways, that's a whole nother subject. But anyways, yeah. So she was like,
And then you go contract.
yeah. So she was thrilled to have me back, and I was back for a few years. And then I had some buddies that contracted, worked for Blackwater. They went in, they started working for Blackwater like in '06, kind of right after they got out of the Marine Corps and stuff like that. So I knew that, with buddies with them, kind of talked to them a little bit about it, and kind of they gave me kind of the scoop on it and stuff like that. Like what they could, And then I was like, yeah, I don't know, because I could have gotten a job probably pretty easily with Blackwater in like '06, '07, '08, those times. And then I was like, I don't know, do I really want to go back overseas and do contract work and shit and blah blah blah? So I kind of held off for a while, and then the itch kept. I had to scratch that itch, right?
Yeah.
It kept itching. I had to scratch it, right? So in like 2013, I started kind of researching contracting and stuff like that, looking at companies, and then, kind of figured out how to apply to these companies, because it's not just like, there's not a recruiter that walks around the school
Yeah.
or walks around town.
Typically, you know somebody that kind of
Correct.
pushes you in the right direction and
Yes.
helps you out, gives you contact info, right?
Yep. That's exactly how it works, right? So, reach out to people and say, hey, how do I get into doing this? And they're like, send your resume to this guy or to this address or whatever, right?
Yeah, or send it to me. That's why I gave mine to Pete, and then
Right.
like
Or-
a year later, I've forgotten all about it. And then
Yeah.
I get a phone call, and I'm like, "Who's this?"
Yep, exactly. Or yeah, like
Yeah.
you said, send it to your buddy, and he knows the guy to send it to. Because the thing is with those companies, like, okay, so I worked for Triple Canopy, my first contract, right, which was it's just like Blackwater, just another company.
Yeah, are they still running?
Yeah. Well, they're combined with it's Constellus now.
Okay.
But like Blackwater, TC, all these Olive Group, all these companies merged. So it's all one. So Blackwater and TC are like one company now,
Okay.
right? And when I say TC, that's Triple Canopy. So they're all merged now. So got my resume sent in, because the thing is, like, if you try to just apply to one of these companies, like send your resume in, like, dude, good luck. Like, they get swarmed with resumes. They get fucking piles of resumes. Like, what in my resume is going to stick out to them where they're like, oh shit, like out of this huge pile of resumes, this kid has got it, right? No, you have to have the right contacts and stuff like that because you're going to get nowhere trying to apply, right? So my resume got sent in, and you kind of play the waiting game, right? So your buddy tells you who to send it into, or your buddy sent it into to the recruiter or whatever, or the guy that it's supposed to go to. And then you kind of just wait for somebody to contact you, right? And they usually contact you by email or phone or whatever, right? And then you just kind of wait around to see, and sometimes it can take several months where you're like, dude, what the fuck? Like, did my resume just get thrown in the shredder, or like what's going on, right? And little do you know, like, it's a huge process to vet guys for these jobs and get the right guys to do these jobs, right? So long story short, you're waiting around, and then you get an email from so-and-so John Doe from Triple Canopy, right? And then, they ask you if you're still interested, because it's been several months at this point, right? So they ask you if you're still interested in working for them and what the contract is and stuff like that and blah, blah, blah. And you obviously get back with them. And that's kind of where you start the process, right? That's where you start your clearance process, all that. And then they send you to a school, right? So let's just say you get hired, right? You get hired with let's just say Triple Canopy, right? They hire you, they send you to their school, which was like, so this was a contract with Department of State, right? So doing diplomatic security for the Department of State. So, protecting diplomats and other VIPs and stuff like that in high threat environments, right? So that's what that job was. They send you to a school through the Department of State. It's ran by Triple Canopy, but it's all DOS protocols and standards and all, because they're the client, right? So it's like, it's whatever standards they have and all that. It's TC guys running it, TC instructors and stuff. But you go to the school, it was like 48 days long. So it was a pretty long school, 6 weeks. And you're doing a ton of stuff that has to do with protecting VIPs and protecting principals in high threat environments. Yeah. Because just because you were a Marine, or just because you were in Ranger Regiment or an SF guy or something like that, that doesn't mean you know how to protect diplomats in high threat environments.
Yeah, there's a process and techniques and
100%. It's a whole different beast. It's a whole different thing, right? And you're kind of just a knuckle dragger, so it's like, so you go to this school, it's like 6 weeks long, and you're doing all sorts of shit. I mean, you're going to driving schools, evasive driving, which was awesome. Like, it was like, I mean, you're doing all sorts of cool shit, right? Evasive driving, off-road driving, learning how to
Sounds like you're doing more almost cop stuff.
Right? Yeah, in a way.
Pursuit type driving.
Yeah, and learning how to drive in, defensive driving, evasive driving, how to get out of certain situations, push throughs, shit like that, J turns, Y outs, all this stuff, how to get out of situations because you're going to be working in cities for the most part, right? So a ton of shooting in that course, CQB, and then just all the movement stuff that goes into working on a detail. I mean, I can't go into specifics on a lot of stuff just because of certain things, but you're learning how to operate as a
doing bodyguard type
doing bodyguard type stuff. You're rolling around in Suburbans and armored Suburbans and shit like that, and like the best way to describe it to people who don't know what diplomatic security is, think of the Secret Service, right? In a way, I mean, except you're just in high threat environments
Other
all the
countries, yeah.
time, other countries, and it's just a lot more high risk than that. But yeah, you're rolling around in armored Suburbans or armored BMWs or armored Land Cruisers and stuff like that, and you're working in teams, and you're protecting diplomats wherever they need to go. Like if they need to go to,
What countries were you in?
so when I was working for Department of State, I was primarily in Baghdad. Yep, so Iraq, the capital of Iraq. That's where that contract was at. Triple Canopy had the contract, so that's where you're getting sent, right? They did have a couple other spots. Basra they had a spot in Erbil.
Did you ever cross paths? Were you over in Afghanistan? Cross paths with any of the other DOE guys from Idaho that went over there, like Pete and some of the other guys? There was a lot of guys from Idaho that were.
There
over
were, yeah, there were. I did not. I didn't run into any of those guys when I was contracting, but I did work with a guy on SRT though at DOE that was a contractor at the same time that I was with Triple Canopy. But like, did I run into like Pete or any of those guys when I was contract? No, and I didn't know the dude that I worked with on SRT was with TC until we started talking.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh shit. We were there like at the same time and all that shit.
It's amazing how many people live here in Idaho that did all that type of work.
Oh yeah,
Like,
a ton.
a lot.
A ton.
Seems like I run into guys like it seems like about every other week.
Yeah.
Guys that talk about they did that type of work.
Yep, absolutely. A ton of dudes. So, but yeah. So you work out of the embassies in Baghdad. So that's where you're working out of. That's where you're operating out is the embassy compound or whatever. And then you're running missions on a daily basis, basically, right? So you're taking whoever it is, right? This high level guy within our government, right? You're taking these dudes to wherever they need to go because they're in high threat environments and they need protection.
It's got a convoy of transporting.
Yeah, and
politicians and
it depends on like what type of team you're on. So there's high pro teams, there's low pro teams, there's reduced pro teams, there's cat teams. There's all sorts of different teams, right? Like your high pro teams are like your more like convoy going down the road of like 5 or 6 Suburbans, right, real close together.
Yeah.
Weaving in and out of traffic, hauling ass.
That's the kind of stuff you'd see on all the YouTube videos, right?
Yes, 100%. That would be like a high pro team, right? And then you have like your low pro teams, which is like maybe 1 or 2 vehicles going out, and you're just blending in with the traffic. You're blending in with your surroundings. The cars are all beat up that you're driving. Like, yeah, they're reliable cars, but like the outside of them are all beat up and shit. So it looks just, the windows are all dark tinted. You have like schmogs and stuff on the dashboard. So it looks like some local driving down the road, right? Those are like your low profile teams. And like in the name, it's low profile, right? So you have those teams, then you have reduced profile teams, which that's what I was primarily on was a reduced profile team, which you're still rolling in Suburbans, but you're not hauling ass down the road in a big convoy, weaving in and out of traffic all fast, fucking bumping people off the road, cracking doors, doing all this shit. You're in an armored Suburban.
Yeah, you don't want to draw any attention to you.
You don't want to draw any attention to you. So you're just kind of like as if when we leave here, we're just going to be driving normally back to your house, right?
You don't want to draw no cops' attention.
No cops, right? You don't want to draw any attention, so you're just you're rolling through the city, just kind of going with the flow of traffic, stuff like that. You're in, you have 4 vehicles in your team, but you're separated. You're not in a 4-vehicle convoy. Mm-hmm. Like your alpha element will go out first, do a hasty advance on the venue, right? And then your Bravo element will leave 5 to 8 minutes after you. So you are not together. They're ahead of you. You're not together. They're doing the hasty advance, right? And then you're coming in behind or whatever. If you're on Alpha or Bravo, depends what you are. I was on Bravo element, right? So I was rear vehicle or whatever. And I was a driver primarily, which that's how you learn the cities.
Yeah.
Right?
And you contracted for how many years?
From 14 to late 18, or well, I got on with DOE early 19.
Yeah.
So
So you did it for quite some time.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It
Especially
is.
doing that back to back.
yeah, it is, and you're doing trips. You're doing trips all the time. You know, like I said before, it's like you're going for like my rotations for that contract were 105/35s. So 3.5 months gone with 35 days home, and that 35 days is part of your travel too. So you're
Yeah.
really only home for 30.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You know what I mean? So that wore on me a bit, you
Yeah,
know,
for sure.
And obviously the family and shit like that. And
Probably
my mom was thrilled that I was
I'll
doing
bet.
that fucking work.
She was probably excited when you got on DOE, right?
Yeah, for
Finally
sure.
staying home.
Yep. Being back
Still
in
get
Idaho.
to shoot, do some CQB, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But don't have to worry so much about being in a high threat environment.
Yeah, for sure. You still get to do a lot of cool things
Yeah.
on DOE. Do a lot of like kind of the cool guy stuff, but you're not
Yeah.
getting in
Not in a
fucking
gun battle
You're not
every
getting in
day.
firefights or having to worry about your life on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You know.
So what kind of guns did he carry when you were doing the diplomatic security stuff?
So we had belt feds, right? Like little what are they? They're like parasaws, right? It's a little chopped down M249.
Oh, nice.
Yep. So like collapsible stocks and little short barrels on them because you're in vehicles, right? So we would have those for like if you get in contact or something to get you out of a shit sandwich, right? So we had belt feds.
Yeah.
And then like your primary weapon systems were just an M4 with and then we carried pistols on us. We carried Glock 19s for DOS. That was our Glock 19s and then just M4s. And then belt feds, and then you have like, you know, the vehicles are fucking set up with like all sorts of, and then you have fucking sniper teams with you.
And were you guys were they armored? Your vehicles?
Yeah, very heavy vehicles where like the suspension system on them is all redone, the engines are all I don't know.
You have tires that you can run.
Yeah, run flats. Yeah, you got run flats. You have countermeasure stuff in the back of them for IEDs and shit like that. So, like, in the back of these Suburbans, they're full of, like, IED countermeasure equipment. Full-on armored vehicles. Like, where the doors weigh, like, 400 fucking pounds and shit. Yeah, and the windows are 3 inches thick.
Makes it tough to come to a stop, huh?
It does. It does. And like I said, the engines are a little more souped up and stuff like that, but you're still rolling around in a very heavy vehicle. So coming to a stop and stuff like that, or if you need to, you know, accelerate to get out of something or something like that, like, you know, it takes a little bit longer than just your average, you know, F-150 or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
So you went from high school, went in the Marine Corps, went and did some private contract work overseas. Mm-hmm. Worked for the Department of Energy, protecting nuclear materials. Now what are you doing? What's the future hold for you, for Nick?
So, I mean, currently I do a little bit of, you know, instructing type stuff, firearms. I work for a private company doing that. Work with a couple guys that you know, doing that. But I don't know. That's not really like a full-time gig or anything. That's kind of just like whenever. It keeps me busy enough. But what I really want to do is honestly try to get on a fire department, you know, a full-time fire department.
Yeah.
You know, just kind of.
So you do really want to be bored, don't you?
I do. I mean, it's.
Ready for some downtime.
I
sounds
am.
like.
Yeah, like.
Cook some food, learn how to run a recliner full time, and
Yeah.
remote control.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, carrying a gun for a living for a lot of years between military, contracting, DOE, all that stuff. It's, you know, I don't know.
You're gonna keep, even when you're a fireman, you're gonna keep shooting competitively.
Oh yeah.
Or you're gonna have to give that up.
No, I'll keep shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. So that's where my interest is at. Is more. My interest, honestly, isn't really instructing that much. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's more like I enjoy shooting. I enjoy shooting competitively. You know, that whole deal. I will continue to do that, you know, because that's kind of one of my passions or whatever. And it just, like, I like to stay up on my skills, too. And shooting competitively is, I think I think the best way to do that.
Yeah, I
You know,
agree.
So
I agree. And I wish more guys who carry guns for a living would do more of that because there's just not enough of them out there.
there's not, and it really surprises you. You know, you think dudes that carry a gun for a living would be like the first ones in line to be signing up for a USPSA match,
Yeah.
and they're not. You know, and it's like that even working like at DOE or working as a contractor or whatever the case might be. Like, you can go shoot a lot, right? Especially as a contractor. Like, we could go shoot kind of whenever we wanted, right? And it was very loose, and you know, it was big boy rules, right? And you wouldn't believe the guys that didn't shoot. And it's like, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah, if you're not doing it for fun, at least do it to stay alive.
Right. And you're in a high threat environment,
Yeah.
and dudes are like, "No, I'm good." And you're just like, "Wow." Like, that's insane. And like the other agency that I worked for as a contractor, like, we got to shoot a ton with that agency, and it was like, you wouldn't believe the guys that didn't shoot.
Yeah.
I mean, it was insane when you have like pallets of ammo just like sitting there. And you can literally go shoot whenever you fucking want.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to take advantage of this shit. You know, I mean, there was trips. There was, you know, with that contract, I was doing shorter trips and stuff like that. But there was trips where I was shooting 3,000-4,000 pistol rounds.
Yeah. I remember,
You know,
being over in Pakistan. We had some times where we were working 7 days, but we had some where we were working just 6 days. So that day off, man, it's just like, I can only sit around and listen to music and watch videos for so long, like
Yeah.
some of those guys. And I'd go to the armory, grab a case of 223, case of 9mm, and I'd go to the range, man. I'd be out there by myself like
Yeah.
all day long.
yeah,
You know, it's just like, I was going to take advantage of it while I could.
yeah, absolutely. Why not? Free ammo. But it's insane. Like, the guys that don't shoot, that carry a gun for a living.
Yep.
It's nuts.
Yep.
You know.
So I've listened to podcasts over the last few years, and seems like some of the guys are like, they get asked like a few questions at the very end.
yeah.
So, what favorite pistol?
Depends what I'm using it for.
Carry gun.
Carry gun.
Yeah.
I
Concealed carry.
carry a Glock 17 with an SRO on it.
Man, you carry that big of a gun? That's
I do.
crazy.
That's crazy, right? Yeah, I know.
You see all these guys carrying these little baby
these
guns.
little teeny micro. And I'm not saying like there's a time and place to do stuff like
Yeah.
that, right? And there's a time and place to carry a Glock 17 or a full size 320 or whatever the case might be, right? Like
Yeah.
on a daily basis, though, if my attire allows it, I carry a Glock 17.
Yeah, I prefer same full size gun. Mm-hmm. All right.
Now if I'm running to Walmart real quick in shorts and flip flops and a t-shirt, yeah, I might stick a Glock 43 or a Glock 48 or a SIG 365 or something.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. But yeah. Yep.
All right. Favorite rifle, carbine.
Favorite carbine that I own.
If you could just go buy one today. what would you
One
go
of
buy?
my, I don't know. I'm a BCM guy.
Yeah.
I'm a BCM guy. Yeah. Their stuff has always worked for me. I think they put out a quality product from top to bottom.
Yeah.
You know, not just uppers and lowers, but like their bolt carrier groups, their bolts, all that stuff, charging handles. I think BCM just puts out a really good product, and they have a lot of good dudes on their basically R&D team,
Yeah.
right? That are very knowledgeable, very. They have the right they have the right people doing their shit, and it's not just some dude that doesn't know anything building guns saying, "Oh yeah, I'm putting out a good product." Like, they test the shit out of their stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm a BCM guy.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Yeah, I have one of their rifles.
Yep.
Good, they make good stuff. Chevy or Ford?
I drive a Ford F-150, and I had a Ford F-150 before the one that I have now. But I don't know. I'm a dude that'll drive whatever. I mean, I like F-150s though. I've had two of them.
Yeah.
I don't know. If somebody was like, "Hey, dude, do you want a Toyota Tacoma or a Toyota Tundra?" Sure. You know, like yeah.
Well, you got to have one if you're overseas, right?
Yeah, yeah, Toyota, yeah, I have Hiluxes.
That's why I always see all these memes that when there's a war starting up, people are like, oh, Toyota stock's going up.
Oh yeah, yeah, to a lot of Toyotas,
Yeah.
a lot of Toyotas.
Well, cool. Well, that's about it. I don't think I have any more questions unless there's anything that you want to feel that you missed that you want to add to some of the stories that you talked about today.
I don't think so. I appreciate you having me on, and I think it's a cool thing that you're doing. Talking about LE stuff, mill stuff, competitive shooting stuff. Yeah, I think it's cool. It's just basically two dudes talking that have like similar backgrounds in certain ways.
Yeah.
And have the same interests and stuff like that, and we're just kind of sitting here bullshitting.
Yeah, gotta do
except it's
something
just being recorded.
Got to do something when you retire,
I know,
So,
I know, right?
like I sit there and listen to all these podcasts, people telling cool stories, and I'm like, man, I know a lot of dudes who've had cool stories too.
Yeah.
We may not all be famous like some of these other guys, but
yeah,
there's a
right.
lot of stories that I think that are untold,
Yeah.
And so I look back at my LE background and some of the things that the guys I work with, I've done some really amazing things from saving other people, having to shoot other people to save people.
Right.
And some of the things that just go on unheard of,
Yeah.
And I want to be able to tell people some of the things that are going on in our own community.
Yep.
Some of the shootings that some of these guys have been involved with, some of the stories going to be told are things that happened right here in the Treasure Valley.
Right.
And that, I've told some of those stories to other people, and they're like, wow, I never even heard of that. Didn't know that kind of stuff went on around here. So,
Yeah.
and that, and just, having good quality people. It seems like so many first responders are retiring here from other places. I meet SWAT guys like all the time. They're moved here, they're big city SWAT guys, and
Yeah.
now they're living here. Guys who were tier 1 military guys are moved here.
Yep.
And it's just like, we're getting a lot of those guys moving here, and I'm just like, these guys got some stories to tell.
Oh, for sure.
So,
Yeah.
and you guys are listening, if you have friends or anybody that you want interviewed, reach out to me, and we'll see if we can get them on here. All right, Nick, thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.